Hey guys, so this is a video for my Year 8 class and just quickly running down the basics on GST and how we can think of GST as percentages and use that idea of the unitary method to help work backwards and forwards. So just quickly, GST. In Australia, the GST, it stands for the Goods and Services Tax. And a goods and services tax is a small percentage that gets added onto the sale price of an item. And that small percentage that gets added on goes to the federal government, and that helps pay for things like the Army, Australia Post, all those things that the government, the Australian government, Anthony Albanese, because this is 2025, and his government, what they pay for. In Australia, at the moment, our GST is 10%. So if the GST is 10%, so that means when I go to buy something off the shelf from Woolworths, or if I go to Super Cheap Auto or any other retailer, what I'm actually buying from them is 100% of what they wanted to sell the price for, plus 10% added on top. So that means my sale price, whatever I'm paying at the counter, I need to remember in my mind, stick in my mind, that that's 110% is what I'm buying. 100% is what the store wants, and the extra 10% on top goes to the government. Now, what are we going to do with that? Right, so to manipulate the GST, we're going to use the unitary method, because remember, the number one, it's a mathematician's favorite number. I can make anything one, and I can turn one into anything. Before we go any further, we want some terminology as well. So GST, we know, is the 10%. That's the goods and services taxed. If I read something and it says GST is included in the price, or GST inclusive, I need to remember in my mind that's the 10% and the 100% put together, so it's 110%. The other phrase I need to look out for is GST excluded, or another way of saying that is the pre-GST price. And that was just going to be that 100% that the company wants to sell it for. So let's go and look at an example. So this first example I've got here, what I'd like you guys to do is, once I've finished going through this example, pause and copy it into your books. All right, so a $600 bike excludes GST, right? That's important to me. It excludes GST, because that phrase excludes GST tells me that it's the 100% price. It doesn't have the GST in it. The question's asking me to find how much GST needs to be added and what is the final selling price. They're the things I've been asked to do. So to tackle that, let's figure out how much GST needs to be added. Well, remember, GST, it's 10%. Fractions are my friend, so 10% is 10 over 100. So going back to our percentage skills that we did all the way at the beginning of the course, we're just going to do 600 times 10 over 100, 10%. And we put that on our calculator, we get $60. So $60 is 10%. That's going to get added to this selling price. So our selling price is that $600, what they want to sell the bike for, plus the GST component that goes to the government. So that's a total of $660 that we pay for the bike. Let's go to example 2. A PS5 game was sold for $89, and that includes GST. It includes GST. That's important to me because it includes GST. Because that includes GST, I know that that number there is 110%. It's everything in total. What I've been asked to find is, what is the pre-GST price and how much was included. Now this is the tricky one, and this is where we're going to use our unitary method to help us out. So let's go thinking. Including GST was 110%. So if we zoom in here, we know 110% is $89. So we're going to use our unitary method. Remember, it's mathematician's favorite number. I need to do 110 divided by 110 to get to 1%. Whatever I do to the left, need to do it to the right. So on our calculators, we're going to get 89, and divide it by 110. And when we do that, we get this ugly decimal, 0.80909, and that pattern continues. I'm just going to leave it as an ugly decimal. And now to make it 100%, so what was the price before GST? I multiply the 1 by 100, get to 100%, and whatever I do to the left, I do the right, and I get 80.9090. That pattern continues, but money is always 2 decimal places. So when I round this to 2 decimal places, I get 80.91. So 100% before GST is $80.91. Now, how much GST was added was the second part to that question. So I'm going to use that 1% because I can make 1 into any number. I'm going to make it into 10%. So I'm going to use that number, 0.80909, blah, 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 over here. I'm going to get that number. What was that number again? 0.809 dot 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 times 10. So get that back on my calculator. And what I ended up with, and when I round it to 1 decimal place, is $8.09. And then to check, did I do my maths right? 8.09 plus, if we look over the 80.91 equals $89. So we've done our maths right. Right, making sure you've paused and watched those and copy those examples down into your book. I'll leave it there so you can copy that part down. Finally, your worksheet, it's set up for you to do it. It's set up with our circles. 110% divided by 110 gives me 1%. I times 1% by 10 to get my GST. That first column is all about finding the GST. The second column, again, looking at the blue, how it's set up, find the sale price given the excluding GST. So we know that 100% is $704. Divide 704 by 100 to get 1%. So that becomes 7.04. And now we just do that times 110. And we get $774.40. And that's the price including GST. So we want to find that 110%. And then finally, in that last column, it's again using that unitary method, dividing it by 110 to get some ugly numbers, 0.03754, blah, 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 leaving that number on my calculator and just timesing it by 100 straight away to get 3.75 when I round it to 2 decimal places.